Good morning. Before I get started, we have to do an introduction really quickly. Is Tracy and Kelly here? Are they here? Go ahead and stand up. We have a baby to introduce to you, Gianna Bella Mock. She's been here a few weeks, but we haven't formally introduced her to the congregation. So if we could give her a nice welcome from our church here. Man, and her hair is awesome. If you haven't checked it out yet, it is sweet. And so Tracy and Kelly was in my youth group growing up. I'm so excited for you guys in this journey that you've been on. And I'm so excited she's healthy and you're healthy and you guys are doing well. So thank you. And guys, give them one more hand really quickly. So before I get started on my sermon, I need to talk to you through something really quickly. So for years, I've helped kind of led the VBS here at our church. And at the end of the week, me alone have been the one to get something put in their face. And so let's go through this. So one year, here's this last year, this prior year, ice cold water just being dumped on my head continuously. Go ahead and go to the next one. Okay, this was pudding and dirt actually being put on my face. Let's go to the next one again, cold water. Then go to the next one, and paint even on my face. And I have been the only one to be able to get this. Now, this year, I was here for the first night of VBS, and I went off to Phoenix, Arizona for NYC, Nazarene Youth Convention. And I'm sitting at home, or in my hotel in Phoenix on Friday night, and what do I see? But 6 people volunteering to get something put in your face. And so I want to walk you through this just to see what's going on in Columbus here, in Hilliard, and what's happening in Phoenix. So go ahead, and if you haven't seen it, all right, like this, all right? The first person's going up there, Jude. He's getting ready. Yes! I love it. I love it. Who else is next here? All right, okay. Norby in my youth group. I wish he would have got him better. I just got to say it. I wish he would have got more in his face. All right, there we go. Okay, now let's check on me in Phoenix. What's going on with me? Only thing going in my face, delicious macaroni and cheese with bacon bits. Deliciousness. All right, let's come back to Hilliard here. Let's see what's happening in Hilliard. All right. Okay, not once has he volunteered in the past, but I love it. I love it. And he got it the worst, which was by far the best. All right. And so, all right, here we go. Who's next? Ken gets it really good here. I like it. I like it. All right. Let's go to Phoenix, see what's going in my face. Some pizza. That's right. That's right. Delicious pizza with grilled cheese and French fry. All right, and the last one here, the clip here, what's happening here. And what's up with the bib? Like, what's he trying to do here? I mean, what's he trying to protect? Yes, I love it. Very nice. And the only great thing about this next one is my daughter. Actually, Aaron had to take it, right? One for the team. But the great thing about this is Kevin gets a lot of there. I love it. It's awesome. Now, let's check on me one more time in Phoenix. What's going on there? Yes, some Starbucks going in my face. Nothing bad happening to me. But I did think, you know what? It looked like a lot of fun, what they were doing here in Hilliard. So go ahead and go to the next slide. We decided to throw some ice cream in Lavana's face just so that we could have some of that going on too. So we had some fun. And let me just say this, all fun aside, you guys did an incredible job at Vacation Bible School. All the volunteers, we were able to raise so much money for the backpacks, and just thank you so much. I just want to say that and just have some fun along the way. So as I start my sermon today, at the beginning of the summer, I was at Mount Vernon Nazarene University at an event called Field Blast. For those who aren't familiar with what Field Blast is, every district in all of Ohio, Nazarene District, all of West Virginia and Eastern Kentucky, compete in sports and music and different things. And if they qualify, they get to go to Mount Vernon Nazarene University for a thing called Field Blast. And over 1,000 Nazarene teams from all of Ohio, West Virginia, and Eastern Kentucky get to compete together. And each night there is a service. And this year our speaker was Chris Simning. And go ahead and put up his picture. Chris actually has cerebral palsy. He was born with cerebral palsy, but he also contracted a really weird nerve disease right before he goes into high school, a disease that really limits his mobility, it limits his speech. And so I'm a district president for our district, for the youth, and when we were choosing this, the real question was, can he speak clearly enough? Can the kids connect with him? And I have a twin brother who has cerebral palsy. He was born with it in a wheelchair all his life. And I was like, you know what? I feel like this could be really good. It should be really important. I would be excited to hear him speak, and so we chose him to speak. And so that first night, I'm in the balcony. It was my shift to be in the balcony and make sure no teens were allowed to come up. And so I'm sitting alone up in the balcony on one side, and another district president is on the other side of the balcony. And Chris comes out, and he's slowly making his way to the lectern, and he starts to speak. And I have to be honest, for a few minutes, it's hard to understand what he has to say. But the longer it goes, the more you're able to understand what he's saying. And it was so impactful. That night, he preached on John chapter 5, which, if you're not familiar with it, it's the very beginning of that verse, or that chapter, is about Jesus healing a disabled man that had been disabled for 38 years. And it was incredible how this disabled man was preaching about how Jesus had healed a disabled man. And one of his main points was like, Jesus has not healed me yet, but God is still using me. And it was a very, very powerful message. But it was interesting. There were two parts as he's reading through John chapter 5. There were two sections I had never really noticed before, and something that I just connected with. And I remember talking to my wife a week later, and it's like, he didn't preach on this, and I can't get these two thoughts out of my head about John chapter 5. And so as I've been able to pray and think about it for the past month and a half, that's what I want to preach on today. And I feel like there's something for all of us to get out of today. So if you have your Bible, if you have a Bible app, we're going to be reading from the NIV version of John chapter 5. If you don't have your Bible, that's fine. Just listen along. And it's only a few verses at a time that we'll be going through. So again, John chapter 5, and we'll be reading verse 1 through 9. And it says this: Sometime later, Jesus went to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish festivals. Now there is in Jerusalem near the sheep gate a pool, which in Aramaic is called Bethesda, and which is surrounded by 5 covered colonnades. Here a great number of disabled people used to lie: the blind, the lame, the paralyzed. One who was there had been an invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, he asked him, "Do you want to get well?" "Sir," the invalid replied, "I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. While I am trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me." Then Jesus said to him, "Get up, pick up your mat, and walk." At once the man was cured. He picked up his mat and walked. So I want to give you just a little bit of background, and so you understand this passage a little bit better. So Bethesda means house of outpouring or house of mercy. If you go to the first slide I have here, you can actually see this is a model of what the pool of Bethesda used to look at. There's 2 different pools, and there's the 4 sides, and then also the one that goes down the middle and saying 5 colonnades or porches or patios. If you actually look at it today, you can see that most of it through battles and just time has worn away, but you can see actually how deep the pool was at the time that they had this. Now, In the verse, it talks about the pool being stirred. There's a Jewish tradition that the pool of Bethesda, that an angel of the Lord would come down and stir the water or touch the water. If you happen to be the first person to be able to get into the pool after the angel of the Lord had come and touched the water or stirred the water, then you would be healed of any affliction or handicap that you would have. So naturally, hundreds upon hundreds of people who were blind or paralyzed or had any kind of handicap would just sit around those porches and just wait to see any kind of movement from the water. And when that water moved or had something happen, everybody would just dive in at once. It's really, in fact, a Roman writer described it as this way: the whole scene, the pool, the multitude of 6 people, is one of misery, disappointment, and failure. Now, years later, archaeologists have actually been able to go down deeper and kind of really excavate and really look. And what they've found is that there is this intermittent spring that shows up. They can't really explain why it shows up. That will actually start to pool at the bottom, and then after a while, it will go away. And so the thought is that this intermittent spring would come about and probably produce bubbles up along the surface, and people would think that was the angel of the Lord stirring the waters. And that's when people would try to jump in and get in the pool, which I find really fascinating. But here's the first thing that I noticed when Chris was preaching about this, as he's reading through the text, is the man actually doesn't say he wants to get well. He tells Jesus, man, if you could just help me get to the pool. That was really all I need, because you had this whole idea, right? He says he has no one to help him, so he's probably alone. He probably doesn't have very many friends. There's obviously all these other people that are blind and paralyzed and have ailments, so they're not going to help him, right? Because they're going to be they're the ones that want to get into the pool first, right? But he feels like, man, I'm so invalid. I can't move very well. If only I had somebody to help me get down into the pool, that'd be great. Jesus asked him, do you want to get well? And he says, well, I could just use a hand. He's believing that the pool can actually heal him, but not Jesus. And to his credit, he doesn't know who Jesus is. There's no way of identifying who Jesus is. He's not done any other miracles or anything else at the pool right now. He thinks he's just a regular guy who's come up and asked him how he gets well. And in his mind, that's the only possible way he could get well, is that if he can get into the pool first before anybody else. And so I've thought about this, and I shared this story with our teens a few weeks ago, and I wanted to share it because I think it applies really well. So the summer before my freshman year, I was hanging out with a kind of a rough crowd and just not very good people, and I decided, after kind of a traumatic experience, that I didn't want to hang out with these guys that were criminals and doing these bad things anymore. I was going to change my image. I was going to make new friends, and I was just going to go into high school with this really positive attitude. And so I worked hard that summer. I would caddy at the golf course. I would mow lawns. I had a buddy who would tassel corn, so I'd ride up with him. And that's the worst job in the world, is tasseling corn, if anybody's ever done it before. But I had made a lot of money for me. And so I decided, you know what? I'm going to get some new clothes, and I'm going to look really sharp as I go into high school. So I'll never forget, I go to the store. Now, in the 80s, you had to have a jean jacket. You just had to. If you lived in the 80s, you know the jean jacket was very, very important. So I decided I'm going to get a black jean jacket. So I go and I find this Guess jean jacket, and I got a black one because I wanted to stand out, right? I'll never forget, $65, which in the 80s was a lot of money. So I was like, I don't care. I want this jean jacket. And then I go to the music store, and I buy me like $20 worth of buttons, because you have to have buttons on your jean jacket so you can look stylish, you know what I'm saying? And so I got my buttons, I got my jean jacket, and I was like, oh man, I gotta get me some nice shoes to just complete the outfit. So I go to the shoe store, and this salesman totally does a number on me. And he's like, man, yeah, you don't want the Nikes, you want these British Knights. Does anybody remember British Knights at all? Thank you. Like, they were these cheap old shoes they were Nike wannabes. But this guy was like, man, if you wear these shoes, you're gonna be the man at your high school. I was like, all right, I'm gonna buy these $80 shoes, these British Knights, high tops, black, so they match my jean jacket. And I think, man, this is it. I'm gonna go into high school looking smooth. And so I decide I'm gonna try out my outfit. So it's August and it's crazy hot, but I don't care. I wear my stonewashed jeans. I put on my British Knights shoes. Put on my jean jacket with my buttons. I'm looking good, y'all. I'm not gonna lie. And I decided I'm gonna go to church. And so I go in. I'm walking through. Nobody cares. I'm like, this is odd. I thought this was gonna totally work. I was like, okay. So I decided I'm going to go hang up because I'm hot, right? So I take off my blue jean jacket. I hang up my blue jean jacket there in the church. I go into youth group. I come out after church, after our youth group is done. I go to get my jean jacket, and there is no jean jacket. Someone has stolen my jean jacket. They didn't even leave me the buttons. I mean, they took the buttons. They took the jean jacket. And I'm like, I'm just now starting to go to church. I'm like, church is not a safe place, you know. I mean, like, people will steal your stuff at church even. Like, this is terrible. And I'll tell you what, it devastated me. It devastated me. And I was like, well, there goes that plan. All I have now are my British Knights, and I don't think that's going to do it. And the more I find out, nobody cares that I have British Knight high tops. So I go into high school. I have no plan. I thought this was going to be the solution, the thing that was going to make me popular and get me new friends. And it didn't work. In fact, I feel like that freshman year of high school was probably the loneliest year I've ever had. And thankfully, God brought some friends into my life my sophomore year. But it's funny how we think there's those things in life that can be our solution instead of Jesus, right? The man says to him, man, if you could just get me into the pool, that'd be great. That's all I really need, Jesus. And it's funny how we sometimes are the same way. We say to Jesus, you know what, Jesus, if I had a better job, then I'll be well. Everything will be great. If you could just provide that. God, if I could just have a better marriage, if you could fix those things in my marriage, everything would be great. And then life would be easy. God, if you could just help me get to the pool, if you get me to that thing, if you could just fix this one thing, everything would be fine. And yet, Jesus is saying to him, do you want to get well? Almost like, it's funny too, because when Jesus interacts with other people, like the blind man, he actually asks, do you want to be healed? But to this man, he says, do you want to get well? It almost implies that it's not just physical healing that this man needs, it's something much, much more. But I also love the question, do you want to get well, because of this. I've been in ministry for a long time, for almost 25 years, and I can tell you this with a lot of confidence. Some people don't want to be well. They want to hold on to their bitterness. They want to hold on to their hatred. They want to hold on to blaming their mother or their father or whatever it may be. So Jesus comes to him, do you want to get well? No. I think I'm good here. Yeah, it's not great, and yeah, there's a lot of other sick people here, but I kind of gotten used to it, and I'm okay, and if it happens, it happens, that's great. But I sit in counseling for years, and I hear this over and over again. I deserve what I'm getting. I made my bed, now I have to lie in it. Anybody ever heard of that before? Because they think they did something so horrible, so bad, there's no fixing it. There's no way to get better. There's no way to get well. Now, here's the truth. We all make mistakes, and for a lot of us, we have to face the consequences of that. But if you actually believe there is no hope beyond that, I believe you're wrong. I believe Jesus is saying to you, do you want to get well? And you have to ask yourself, do I really want to? So let's move on. Before I do that, actually, I want to say one more thing. And I'll say this as much as I can because I feel like there's so much truth, because I learned this a long, long time ago, is that we are either the victim or the victor. We are either going to live our life waking up every single day saying, and looking in the mirror and saying, I'm defined by this mistake. I'm defined by the bad things I've done. I'm defined by this or that or whatever it may be. And you're waking up already with a defeated attitude and living out that day saying, I am the victim. If only my mom would have cared about me more, or only if I would have got that job, or if only I would have went to college longer, whatever it may be. So many people walk around with this victim mentality. And yet, in the Bible, what Jesus preaches is this: you already have victory. Why are you missing out on joy? Things I have in store for you. Why don't you wake up every single day as a victor, to conquer the day, to say, no matter what, I know I made mistakes, I know I'm not perfect, but you know what? I'm going to live this day joyfully. I'm going to be aware of what God has in store for me. And I'm not going to throw away today acting like the victim. So with that, let's go move on. John chapter 5, 9 through 15, it says this. The day on which this took place, the healing, was a Sabbath. And so the Jewish leader said to the man who had been healed, it is the Sabbath. The Lord forbids you to carry your mat. But he replied, the man who made me well said to me, pick up your mat and walk. So they asked him, who is this fellow who told you to pick it up and walk? The man who was healed had no idea who it was, for Jesus had slipped away into the crowd that was there. Later, Jesus found him at the temple and said to him, see, you are well again. Stop sinning, or something worse may happen to you. The man went away and told the Jewish leaders that it was Jesus who had made him well. Isn't it funny that the Jewish leaders don't seem to be concerned about his healing at all? Here's this guy, he's just been healed, right? He was an invalid, now he's walking around, he's able to have enough strength to even carry his mat, which was probably just a pallet of straw that you could roll up and carry around. They don't seem to be concerned about that at all. And the fact is this, is that for the Jewish leaders, there's 39 works. 39 things you just can't do on the Sabbath. And one of them is to carry something for work. To carry any kind of thing for work. Well, obviously, this guy's been an invalid for 38 years. He's actually not breaking the Sabbath because that's his home. That's the only thing he's ever had. But yet, these Jewish leaders are so concerned that there's this whole idea that he's working and carrying something. They actually cared nothing about his healing, but only about following the rules. And the man's like, oh, hey, hey, I'm just carrying the guy. He healed me, and he told me to pick it up and carry it. And they're like, where's this guy? What are you talking about? And he's looking around. He can't see him. And it's like, I don't know, but it's not my fault, man. It's not my fault. He told me I had to carry it. That's part of the healing, right? Pick up your mat and walk. And I'm just doing what I'm told, man. Don't attack me. I'll find him. Just leave me alone. He doesn't seem to be happy. He seems to be attacked here. He's just kind of backing off. And I just think that's so odd. But here's the second thing that I noticed that night as Chris is reading through that scripture is this. And I feel like there's so much relevance here that I don't want any of us to miss it. So it says that Jesus finds the man in the temple. He's not hanging out at the pool anymore. He's at church. He's at the place where they worship and give offerings and all these things. He's at church. It doesn't say why he's there, but I have to think like he's there probably giving praise, possibly. He's probably never been allowed to go because he's been considered unclean. And so now he's probably clean, and he thinks, man, this is great. I'm going to go and give thanks. And yet Jesus comes up to him and says, hey, dude, you're well. Stop sinning, or something worse is going to happen to you. He's at church, and yet Jesus comes up to him and says, stop sinning. Now, it never says what his sin is. It never says if he's actually doing that sin at that time. That's what Jesus says to him. It's almost like Jesus is saying to him, what are you doing here? Because obviously there's something there that Jesus sees in this man that is such that he just has to change, or he's going to go down the same destructive path that he's been on that led possibly to him being an invalid for 38 years. It never really says. And the man is so offended, he goes to the Jewish leaders and he says, that's the guy. That's the guy. That's the one who healed me. He doesn't protect Jesus. He's not thankful to Jesus for healing him. He just wants to blame somebody so he himself is not in trouble. And obviously does not want to change his sinful ways. This is so impactful, guys. Because here's the truth. So many of us in this room, we have something in our life that we have fought years to get against, that we have tried to change, that we come to church, we sit in our chair every Sunday, and yet there's this something inside of us that maybe Jesus is continually talking about, or somebody says something in a sermon, and it just stirs something in you, and it's like, man, I really should do something about that. And yet, we decide, nah. And we come back the next week, and we sit a lot of times in the very exact same chair. And God says to us, what about that sin? What about that thing in your life? And you're just like, I don't know. The truth is that God has, if you're here and you've been saved, you have received salvation. And a lot of times, a lot of us have experienced God's goodness and mercy and so many things that God has given to us. And he keeps trying to tell us time and time and time again, yo, look at that sin. What are you doing here? Are you willing to be well? Are you just fine with the things God is willing to give to you? Because it's easy for the surface level stuff, right? It's easy for the things that like other people see that we need to fix right away. But what about those deeper things? I like to think of it like when you go to the doctor for a case of poison ivy, and you go and you want to get treatment, you just can't get rid of it, and so the doctor's able to give you something, and you say, just put this on for 2 or 3 days, the poison ivy's going to be gone. But hey, while you're here, the last time you were here, we did some tests, and you have some possibly serious heart problems, and like you need to go on cholesterol medicine, you need to go and get these things fixed, and or you're going to have long-term things that are going to happen, and possibly even death. And for you to hear all these things like, yeah, I think I'll just deal with the poison ivy. Yeah, those things are later. I feel fine. Everything's good. I'll just take care of the poison ivy. Do you want to be well? Do you really want to take that chance and get closer to God and see what that life looks like? Or are you that guy that just is going to remain, or that lady that's going to stay on that mat, and Jesus is continually going to come to you and say, do you want to get well? Well, I'm okay with you helping me down to the pool and taking my chances, but I don't think it's possible. Do we really think it's possible for Jesus to do something in our life and for us to give our life to him completely? Or are we going to remain stuck? So Kurt's going to come and lead us in a final song. But before we do that, I love the movie Groundhog Day. It's a movie from the 80s with Bill Murray. And for those who have never seen it, kind of here's the synopsis of it. Bill Murray is a reporter. He goes to Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, and he's there to report on Groundhog Day. And so he's there. He gives his thing. They decide to drive back that night to Pittsburgh, but there's a huge blizzard, and so they have to turn right back around, go to Punxsutawney. He goes to sleep. He wakes up, and he realizes he's in the exact same day. And every time he goes to sleep and every time he wakes up, he has to replay the same day over and over and over again. And at first, he thinks it's great. He's like, hey, there's no tomorrow, right? He breaks some laws. He does some questionable things. And he's like, oh, this is great. And then all of a sudden, he realizes this isn't great. In fact, so much that he tries to commit suicide time and time again, and it won't work. He continually wakes up and Groundhog Day. But as you watch the movie, something starts to happen in the character. He starts to change. He starts to care for other people. He starts to become part of this community. And something changes inside of him. And that is what makes the difference in the end. Here's the truth. It's true for me. It's true for some of us in this room. Man, we're stuck. We're living the same day over and over again. Whether we think we're not good enough, whether we feel like this sin just defines us, whether we wake up every day feeling as we're a victim, we're stuck. And we come here every Sunday and we hear Jesus stirring in us, do you want to get well? Do you trust me? Do you want to move on? For a lot of us, we say, nah, we're good. Or could you fix this one thing? Maybe that'll lead to something else. But the answer, guys, is Jesus. It's Jesus. He's the one that can heal. He's the one who can reshape us into something new. For years and years and years, some of us in this room have tried to help ourselves become unstuck. We can fix this. We made our bed. We can lay in it. But you know what? We're going to fix our own stuff. And Jesus is saying to us today, nah, I got you. But do you want it? So if you'll stand with me today, I just want you to have an honest conversation with God. Whether you want to come down to the altar, whether you want to sit where you're at, whether you want to stand where you're at. But don't leave this place unchanged. Don't leave this place still wanting to stay stuck, still saying I'm no good, I don't deserve it, because those are lies. God has a plan. You are on this earth for a reason. And it's not for self-pity. It's for something much greater than you could have ever imagined. So as Kurt goes through this song, just have an honest conversation. You don't have to tell anybody about it. Just you and God. Do you want to be unstuck? Do you want to live for Him? Do you want to get well?